A few years ago, I was hanging out with my then boyfriend and friend. Both of them are classic logic type dudes, whereas I have a healthy respect for the paranormal. They think stuff like astrology and all of that is bogus, whereas I believe in it. It was around 9 p.m. and we all wanted to go to the beach, and one of us decided to make a Ouija board for fun. I'll preface this by saying neither of us drink or use drugs. They were both being really silly, and I was the only one who was nervous and saying we have to take this seriously. When we got to the beach, I called the quarters and opened the circle, and we started asking dumb questions. And nothing happened. After half an hour, we asked if someone was with us, and the board shot to yes. I immediately tried to end the session and close the circle. We all said we still felt it, and we were all pretty freaked out. My friend started manically laughing, and my boyfriend started getting undressed and said, "I'm going swimming." It was fall, and like 3 a.m., and I didn't feel weird at all, just scared. I'm begging him not to go in the water, and he just keeps blankly staring at me, saying, "I'm going swimming." I'm crying, begging him not to go, and he snaps out of it. Basically, was like, "What the fuck am I doing?" and looked scared as hell. My friend, still laughing and yelling that his name is Marsha. We pull him up the stairs from the beach and get him into our car. Once we were on the street, he saw a deer and ran after it faster than I've ever seen anyone run in my life. We get him into the car and drive home. And we drive by a church where he starts speaking in tongues, and my boyfriend and I are just lost at what to do. When we get to my boyfriend's house, he and I run inside and close the door. I know this was shitty of us, and our friend literally left claw marks at the door trying to get in. I call one of my friends who knows a lot about this stuff. He spoke some words from the indigenous Cree language, and my friend starts to projectile vomit and starts sobbing, asking us what had happened. The next day, we go to get fast food, and the employee keeps calling out a to-go order for the name Marsha, but no one comes to get it. The three of us have since drifted apart, and I don't think about it too often, but part of me thinks that my friend and boyfriend were faking it, but neither of them are that type of person. I have doubts because of how fast my friend ran after the deer. It was humanly impossible. One day, my partner got the idea to buy a Ouija board and use it with a few friends. I wouldn't say we were complete skeptics, but I don't think any of us were really expecting anything wild to happen. We went on the internet and looked up how to safely use one and plan out what kind of questions we should ask. We didn't really want to use it at our house, so we gathered up a couple friends, and I drove to a state park a few towns over. We started to head up the hiking trail and find a good spot to lay the board down. We begin going through the motions of asking if there was a spirit who would like to communicate, etc., etc. The planchette moved with ease. It was really strange. The planchette it came with was a thick hunk of plastic, and there was quite a bit of friction when trying to intentionally move it on the board. We were a bit stunned that the damn thing was working. We asked the spirit if it was a good spirit. Of course, the planchette moved over to no. When we asked if it wanted to harm us, the planchette moves over to yes. My partner asked how it would go about doing this. The board then began to spell out E-N-G-I-N-E. We see a group of hikers coming up in our general direction, and we carelessly put the board away without properly saying goodbye. We hike back down to another secluded area and decide to try again. This time, we come into contact with a spirit who claims to be a 6-year-old boy who died sometime in the 1800s. Seemed nice at first, until he told our friend he wanted him to die so he would have someone to play with. We decide to ask the board questions only we would know the answers to. Each person asking the question took their hands off the planchette. The board got every damn question correct, and that's when I started to feel a bit uneasy. I honestly couldn't believe it. The board then proceeded to spell out my name. I wasn't really sure why. Soon after, it began to rain, so we told the board that we had to go, and asked it to help us bring the planchette down to goodbye. It complied. We all began walking back to my car when I noticed this woman sitting in an SUV next to mine, watching us. Her gaze never really left, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. We all get into my car, and I go start it, and the engine doesn't turn on. It was almost as if the battery was dead, but all of my accessories still worked. I hadn't had my car for very long, and it never gave me trouble. It seemed like way too big of a coincidence. I looked over at that woman and put my window down and asked her if she had jumper cables. She reaches behind her and pulls them out, as if she had them ready. We get out of my car and hook them up. And that's when my partner's friend's phone rings from a number he doesn't recognize. He picks it up, and it was someone just asking if we were okay. He chalked it up to the fact that a drug dealer previously had the number, so he got a lot of unknown calls. Weird. We started chatting with this woman and thanked her for letting us use the jumper cables. Turns out she has the same name as me, which the board had previously spelled out. Perhaps a warning? She tells us she works as an ultrasound technician at a local hospital and has cancer and young children. We ask her what she was doing in the parking lot, to which she explained she was waiting for her weed dealer. Medical marijuana is legal in my state, so I was a bit perplexed, but didn't think anything of it. I was just grateful she was helping us. I go to try and start the car, and it still doesn't work. It just kind of rolls for a few feet in the parking lot before shutting off. At this point, it's getting dark, and I begin to come to terms with the fact that I'll have to call a tow truck. Our friends ended up getting picked up, and my partner stayed with me as we waited for the tow truck to arrive. We told the woman she could leave, since she was still weirdly waiting with us. She offered for us to sit in her car while we wait, because it was raining again. I asked her if she could pop the trunk so I could sit on the ledge, but she told me the trunk didn't open, so stupidly, I get in her car with my partner. The weird woman made a joke about disabling her child safety locks in the back, so I won't think she's trying to keep us here. That rubbed me the wrong way. She starts telling me that maybe I should just leave my car there and offered to give us a ride home. I politely decline. Then she tells me she has a friend whose husband works for VW and he could surely fix my car for a good price. She calls up her friend, and because we were in the same car, it was quiet enough for my partner and I to faintly hear the other line. She explains the car problem and asks how much it would be to fix it. We hear on the other line the person ask if I'm a boy or a girl. The woman says, "Girl," and the man on the other line simply said, "Good." We get out of the car and tell her the tow truck should be there soon, and thanks for the help. We gave her the Ouija board and told her she could keep it because we didn't want it anymore. I still wonder what she did with it. She kept trying to get me to give her my phone number and kept saying she would come with me to get my car fixed. Eventually, she fucked off. We ended up getting back home late. We told the AAA guy how we were fucking around with a Ouija board and met a weird lady afterwards. He said he wouldn't have picked up if he knew that. The next day, my partner opened his texts that he had sent out when we were waiting for the tow. In a conversation with his mother, the text box had said, "Yes, Satan, yes," written out. The message wasn't sent, but he sure as hell didn't write that. The next day, I called the hospital to see if that woman even worked there, like she had claimed. They transferred me to 2 different floors, and there was no ultrasound technician working there by that name. I still don't know how to explain what happened that night, and I'm sure as hell never using a Ouija board again. Also, the dealer the woman claimed to be waiting for never showed up. So what was she doing that night? And what were her intentions? I'll never know. When I was 13, and my now deceased sister was 14, we decided, after watching old movies about Ouija boards, to make our own. Since our house was being renovated at the time, there were tons of materials in the backyard that we thought we could use, such as wood planks and whatnot, so we went scavenging. I was an easily scared child, and she was fearless, so I told her to maneuver the board and that I wouldn't touch it. She laughed at me, and we proceeded to ask questions. A spirit came through, told us his name was Roger, and that he had died of food poisoning. During that time, our oldest sister, who was pregnant and visiting us, was upstairs vacuuming and doing some cleaning. We had a central vacuum, and the box was in a closet beside my bedroom downstairs, in which we were playing with the board, so it was pretty noisy in the room because of the vacuum cleaner. If our sister had spoken to us, we would not have heard her. So fast forward to a few minutes of silence from the board, when suddenly the planchette starts spinning really fast and spells out our sister's name, wants to talk to you. At that moment, the vacuum stopped and she yelled at us to come help her with chores. We were pretty freaked out about the coincidence and decided to throw the board away in the backyard. We weren't allowed to wander off in the semi-ravine that had formed, and it wasn't fenced, so we knew not to get too close. We threw the board in the ravine and forgot about it. The next day, it was very warm outside, and my sister came to ask me if I wanted to go for a swim in our pool. I said yes, and we each went to our bedrooms to put on our swimsuits. We go outside by the back door, and right there, laying by the pool, is the board. We exchanged a deeply horrified look, and threw it a second time very far down the ravine, and never spoke of that story again. I used to play Ouija with my friend in high school. We would get together and go to old churches or into the woods and see who we could contact. One night, she and I ran into an old slave graveyard. We contacted some spirits, nothing out of the ordinary. Eventually, we decided to pack it in and go home. We went back to her place, and she suggested we chill in the old school groovy attic. She said she got this feeling like we should try the board one last time. We set it up and asked the usual questions. Is there anybody here? Yes. What is your name? Jack. Then she got this weird look on her face. She very quickly said goodbye and put the board away and started sobbing inconsolably. I was totally confused. We went downstairs and got her a glass of water. She managed to stop crying, and after sitting in silence for about a minute, she sighed and said, "I think we should try it again." I cautiously agreed and reminded her we can stop at any time if she gets scared or uncomfortable. We went back upstairs and unpacked the board. She took a deep breath and, noticeably steadying her voice, asked, "Jack, are you still there?" "Yes. If this is the person I'm thinking of, give me a clue that only you and I recognize." The planchette moved to the numbers 1977. She let out a little gasp and then asked if he had a message for us. The planchette started moving more and more slowly with every letter, but eventually it spelled out BELIEVE. INGOD. I had chills all over my body. She and I looked at each other across the board. We said thank you and goodbye and ran downstairs. There, she had told me of her ex-boyfriend, Jack, who had started a 1977 punk revival band with her, and how he had OD'd on heroin 3 years earlier.